when you're designing a database in object-oriented programming, you will come across the concept of inheritance. Now, in inheritance, we basically have classes inheriting from other classes. Now, an example here is the employee class. Now, we have many different types of employees in a given company, for example. So an engineer is also an employee, an administrator is also an employee, a manager is also an employee, a director is also an employee. Now we have this engineer, this manager, and this administrator here, all inheriting from the employee class in object-oriented programming. So when you are defining the engineer class, the manager class, and the administrator class, we do not have to specify the attributes again. So that is the whole concept of inheritance. Yes, the classes here are different. An engineer is different from an administrator, and a manager is also different from an administrator and an engineer. So each class here is unique in its own way, but all of them inherit from one single parent class called the employee class. So that is the whole concept behind object-oriented programming. Another thing, the functions we define inside the employee class are not needed to be redefined in the other classes because they will automatically be included in the engineer class, the manager class, the admin class, and the director class. So that's one key thing to note. Now, here we have an access modifier which is set to private. Now, in my video, we will change these access modifiers to protected, and I will explain why. So first, we need to create our employee class, define its constructors, and define the getters and the setters, and also other methods that we may find necessary. So let us go to my code editor. Now I will create a new package and I will call this package management system. Now inside management system, I would like to have the employee class. Now an employee has a name, so this will be my first attribute. An employee also has an employee ID. I will name that emp ID, and an employee has a salary, so I'll put it in double data type, so salary. An employee may also have a social security number if they are from the United States, so I put this as private int SSN. Simple. So now we define the constructor. Public employee. So usually I like my first constructor taking no arguments. So then I will use constructor overloading to define another constructor that will take arguments. So employee, it will take the arguments of name, and probably the employee's ID, because we don't want to be displaying the salary in we don't want to be displaying the salary of the employee when we are passing in parameters into this constructor. So here we set emp ID. Probably a good idea is the emp ID. So int emp ID. So with that, this to reference the object, and then I assign first parameter, then I assign the second one, and we are done when it comes to constructors. Now I want to define the getters. So public string get name. This will just return the name. It's the function that returns the name. Then we have public int this will return the employee's ID. Then we have for the salary, I want to get the salary. Return salary. Our salary was for double data type. So with that, we have our getters. And the final one is for the social security number. Those are our getters. Now we want to define our setters. So I would say public void set name, public void set salary, and then finally I need to remove this one. Set employee ID, then for the social security number, double now I'd like to show you a creative way of defining your constructors. Now we have defined setters here, and we've also defined getters. Now you see, when I have defined these setters, I do not need to use this system. I can decide to use it, no problem. The system of this.name is name. So here we are assigning name, this parameter, to our attribute of an object that we will have created. But I could still come and say set name, and set employee ID to So I have actually done the same thing because we have defined the function such that when they take these arguments, name and ID, they will automatically assign the attribute to the object. So I can still use my setters here. So that's just a creative way. You could use the traditional way of this dot name or this dot emp ID. There's really no problem with that. So I'm keeping mine this way for now. Now going back to the documents, we have thoroughly defined this class. We have put all the attributes that are required. We have also put the set name function, but we have not put this one. So let us add this method. So public double raise salary. So this one is for raising the salary. Double amount. So it will take an argument. So we want to increment the salary. So I will say salary. So we are incrementing the amount to the initial salary. Then I could actually define it in another way. I could put this as a void function so that it doesn't return anything specifically, but rather just set our salary to some specific amount. So let me confirm with this method here. Yes, this is what I will do instead. So coming back, I will say this is a void. And then that's it. That's literally it for our small function. So the user will put in an amount, or the management will put in an amount, and then the new salary of this specific object or the user will be increased according to the amount that they have input. So with that, we are done, effectively done with our employee class. Now it is time to create other classes. So I'll come here. I will create a new class, and I'd like to name this one engineer. Now for a class to be an inheritor, you have to use the keyword extends. So public class engineer extends employee. So with that, we have specified that the engineer is also an employee using the extends keyword. Now I'd like to run a small test before I continue. Now we haven't defined any methods, okay? But now I would like to create a test file. So this is where I will test my classes. So this one will have the main function. Now, let us say So this one we are declaring and then creating an object. Okay, so I can say the name is Alice. They will take the parameter of 5323 as the ID. Now, what about the engineer? Let's say engineer A1. Meanwhile, our constructor does not have any parameters, and I will explain that in a few. But then let's say we want to find the attributes of our engineer. So that means I can get all the methods. I can't see the specific attributes because remember I set them to private here. But when I set this name public, you should be able to access this attribute name here. So A1 also has a name. But remember, we haven't done anything to the engineer class. It automatically inherits this attribute from the employee class. Again, if I say e1.name, I'm able to access the name. As you can see, it is an option, and the same to A1. So they have the same attributes. The attribute is being inherited in simple terms. So with that, I think I'll end this video from here, and in the next video I'll try to explain how we can inherit a constructor. So notice here we can't do the same thing for engineer. Yes, the engineer has a name, but I still can't set the name to say something like Kilian or an ID like 573. So we're going to investigate that in the next video, and then also put unique methods for our engineer. But the key thing to note is that you can see here we access all the methods that we defined in the employee class. So all the methods and all the attributes, if they are public or protected, which we will also discuss, are visible for the engineer. So it is clear that the engineer here will inherit from the employee class. Thank you, and keep learning.